like mousy.
So you've got several different parts of your business. A lot of your time when you're looking at my channel, I know a lot of your time is spent finding the next customer. But is that always the time most well spent? That's what we're talking about today. I'm Brenda Trott. They call me the Make Money in Your Sleep Girl. And I'm not alone again today. I have a great guest, Marc Haine. Yeah, hi, Marc. Marc is a service expert and a master of experiences working with business managers and owners using design thinking to build customer attraction and retention programs. His content and personalized levels of service turning their customers into loyal brand ambassadors by understanding and designing for each leg of their customer's journey. Now, the customer journey is something that we have to discuss more on this channel. So I was super excited to bring Marc on board. He's a sought after international speaker and the author of the Amazon bestseller, Lights, Camera, Action. Go ahead and hold up your book. All right. Marc, also, by the way, Marc has a great growing channel here on YouTube, and I will be linking to his grueling of me and my personal journey with the manifestation and trying to merge those things together. Actually, I think our time spent together over there was interesting. There's 2 videos. He didn't get rid of me after the first attempt. And I'll be linking to those below. So make sure you check out his channel. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe mine. Hit that notification so you can see when I go live with a guest. And then go ahead and subscribe to Marc as well. You're going to get some great benefits for your business there. Hey, Marc.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. And thank you so much for the plug. That was awesome. Thank you.
Oh,
I
that's what
appreciate it.
we're about. We have to plug each other and up. And I honestly, that was a very well conducted interview. I am used to the one having to answer the questions. I think many of us as business owners are those that like to ask the questions rather than answer them. Would you feel the same?
It's the same thing. This
All right.
is probably the third time I'm being interviewed. Usually I'm doing the interviewing.
So, oh, really? So we've got you as a newbie. Let's see if we can get some sweat coming off that brow. No. The truth is, it's all good here because the truth is, Marc, that when we bring value, where there's really nothing to fear. All we're doing is showing our expertise, and the effort is to help others as we do that. So I know that we want to talk more about that customer journey. But before we dig into that, one of the things that I've helped my customers do is build a business building book. And so, since you are one of the few who actually finished one and has printed copies right there, tell me what that process was like for you. What made you decide to to write that particular book? How long did it take you, and was it worth it?
Yeah. So, you know, I always was frustrated with having all this knowledge up in my head and not knowing how to share it. And I had talked to many people about, this frustration of, I got so much in here and I just don't know how to bring it out so people know that A, I'm a subject matter expert, and B, that I have experience that they can benefit from. And I struggled with this idea that I'm a customer service expert. Like, I design customer experiences, I design employee experiences. And I had a really hard time trying to figure out what makes me different from other people, from other consultants, other speakers, and so on. And it was at dinner one day that a buddy was talking to me, and he was saying, tell me what you're doing. And I had just started acting in 2017. A coworker came into my office and said, "Marc, do you act?" And I said, "Sure. Sometimes I act goofy, sometimes I act silly, most times just immature." And she goes, "No, no." She says, I have I'm part of this acting theater group, and we have a character who I think you'd be perfect for." And I thought, my very first thought was, I can't remember what I had for breakfast. How am I going to remember lines? But I remembered also that I encouraged my kids to do it. and I encouraged them to, take drama in school and that sort of thing. I thought, it's something I've always secretly wanted to do. Like it was one of those things in the back of your head. You go, gosh, it must be fun. And so I stood up to the challenge and I tried out for the part and I got the part. And 3.5 months in, and the work, the rehearsals that we had to do, it was always a challenge because of course you try something new for the first time and you don't want to let people down. You want to make sure that you step up and you bring your best so that the people who count on you don't get let down. And so I practiced everywhere. I used to walk to work and I'd have headphones on, and part of the character that I had was a French person. And so I'm walking down the street, saying my lines out loud. There is no swimsuits in the pool anyway. And I have to walk past a school, and I swear to God, I look back and the parents were like holding their kids closer as I walk past. I'm just saying. But here we are, we're 3.5 months getting into this, and it's a comedy, and nothing about it was funny. And after 3.5 months, and I remember opening night specifically. Of course, you're nervous. It's the first time you're doing it in front of a live audience. There's 300 people at a dinner theater, and I got up on stage and we started going through, and the laughter started coming. Like the laugh, it just bulldozed us. And people were laughing at the funny bits, people were laughing at the bits that weren't so funny. And it was like, oh my goodness, everything that we worked for came to fruition right then, right there on the stage. And I was blown away. And I was so blown away that the very next day, our call time was 5 o'clock. The very next day, I went in at 3 and I sat on the empty stage. I turned on the lights and I sat on the couch on the empty stage, looking at everything that we had created. Now, as a community theater group, we're a bunch of volunteers. We had to build out the stage. We had to put up the set. We had to move all the furniture from the our playhouse to the venue. We had to set up all the tables and the chairs. We had to coordinate the volunteers, coordinate the caterer. We had to make sure there were people at the door to be able to accept the tickets. We had to sell tickets. We had to do all this work for 6 shows. And I thought, if we can do this, put this much effort, this much passion into what we do for only 6 shows, imagine for a second what would happen if businesses did this each and every day. And that was the catalyst for the book. Lights, camera, action, business operational excellence through the lens of live theater. And so right away it was like, okay, this it manifested itself. Now I had kind of a framework. And so then I had to figure out, okay, well, what does lights mean? What does camera mean? What does action mean? And I started putting the framework together for the book. And the minute I started doing that, the minute I started kind of framing it in the confines of, I want businesses to learn what we do in theater so that they can run better businesses. And a perfect example of this is, I don't know about where you are in Houston, but I'm sure that restaurants will hire a server who's got experience as a server, and because they have limited budget and limited time, they'll say to the server, okay, this is day one. Congratulations. You got the job. Here's your apron. Here's your card. There your customers go. And in theater, would we ever hire an experienced actor and say, okay, here's a script. You have experience. There's your costume. There's the stage. Go. Of course not, because we need to rehearse. And so using theater uh, philosophy, we could make businesses better, because rehearsal in a business would mean training. It would mean running through procedures. It would mean solving problems as you go, and training as a team, not just individually, but as a team. And
Yeah,
so,
that's the big one that I was thinking about, is especially when you talk about any career situation, whether it's a waitress, a customer service rep, a sales rep, or a CEO, is you want to make sure that there's chemistry, just like you want to on the stage, that people can work together in a team environment, and that chemistry is something that, I guess, would you say, can be developed?
and it can not only be developed, it can be scripted. Not, and I don't mean scripting as in, here are the words you're going to say. You're going to go up to every customer and you're going to say, good afternoon, my name is fill in the blank, I will be your server. I'm not talking about scripting to that extent. What I'm saying, when I say scripting, I mean that you can engineer the experience that the people are going to provide. You can get your
Wonderful.
team on board and say, as a server, your role is to do this. As the bus person, your role is to do this. As the retail sales clerk, your role is to do this, and make sure that people are prepared for their role so they understand what happens. Even on the stage, we forget lines. It happens. We forget lines. You get up on stage, but what happens when you forget lines? Do you just come to a complete stop? Do you start pointing and blaming fingers at other people? Do you say, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry"? No, in a restaurant, you'll say, "I'm terribly sorry, the cook messed up." But on a stage, you can't say, "I'm terribly sorry, we're going to have to stop the production right here because our friend over here just messed up their lines." No, we
So I
adapt.
get it. You were able to merge a portion of your work really not that long ago. It's only 4 years ago that you first started,
Yeah,
but you're able to piece that into what businesses do it as a combination. And I really tip my hat because as we've noticed before or discussed before, that I done marketing for 10 plus years, and also in the teaching side. But and I've always considered how when you're a teacher you really need to be a marketer, and when you're a marketer you need to be a teacher. And I've considered doing that, but more personally is the manifestation side of things, or the mindset. I think mindset and manifestation are almost combinable words. So if you're new to my channel, you'll figure that out. But it was difficult for me to take that piece of me and share it with that business side of me, because people would think it was woo woo. So I'm in tipping my hat. I'm like, wow, he took something as artsy and craftsy as theater, and was able to just kind of petition it and show people the exact I need to know about getting them from that prospect all the way to what we call an ambassador, somebody who's cheering for
right.
you and recommending you and those types of things.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and the central characteristic of any business, and some businesses would watch this and say, "Well, there's no way I can apply theater topics to my business." But my argument is that if you are in a customer-centric business and you are making sure that your customers are happy, it's all about the experience that we're creating. And so it's all about fulfilling the experience expectation of your guest through every step of their journey. Everybody has an experience. You and I right now, you have an expectation of how I will behave. I have an expectation of how you will behave. When we agree to do the podcast, we have an expectation of what that's going to look like. Your viewers right now watching right this second have an expectation of what they're going to be getting out of it. And if we can meet the expectation, then it's thumbs up. If we can exceed it, people are doing the happy dance. But if
yeah,
we're not meeting it,
I
then
love that you
people,
threw a teacher word in there again. The
yeah,
expectation is. Now I've got three worlds involved here. That's great, Mark.
there you
Uh,
go.
I have to ask you before and we are going to go move into by the way, there'll be a link for your book for Mark's book in the description here on YouTube. Go ahead and check that out. You can get your hard copy. Is it also on Kindle?
It is on Kindle. I have a hard copy, I have paperback as well, and I'm going to be releasing the audiobook in February.
Oh, very nice. Are you doing that yourself
I
or
am.
okay? So I have to know lots of people that I talk with every day. Oh, that would be a great book. As a matter of fact, my poor children, as you know, I have over 30 titles on Amazon. They're not all in my own name, but my children become very annoyed with me. She thinks everything is a book, because that was the world I was in. Yes, everything's a book, but there's a very specific way to write a book so that it brings you in business. I mean, there's different types of books. I have many in the children's market. As a matter of fact, I have another one about mindset and point of view coming out in the children's section. So you've got books that tell stories. You've got books that are like memoirs, so that it's there so that people can know what's going on. But the business book, the book that attracts clients to you, is a very different animal. And someone could say, yes, I want to write a book, I have all that, or someone tells them, hey, you should write a book, that would really help a lot of people, and that would get more people to come to you, and you can raise your prices, and you can get speaking events, and as a theater, I'm sorry, that was a theater in me, and but um when they get to in front of that computer and then they go to start, it doesn't work out for everyone. And I
Mm.
and I know this, I've got programs that I where I teach people to do it, but how did you go from, this is a good idea, I can definitely put this together, to actually getting it done? And how long was that process?
So the process to write, it happened very quickly once I decided it. When I first came to this realization of lights, camera, action, I realized that this was a framework, and I had to figure out, what did lights refer to, what did camera refer to, what did action refer to. So in my case, lights was everything like before the show, everything like, the director has to find out who's the perfect cast for this. They have to read the script, they have to understand the story, and so on. They have to understand their why. And then camera was everything that the audience is going to see, everything. And in the book, I talk about how we had one play that I did that we were on a golf resort. It was a pretend golf resort. Well, I actually went to the golf course and we got the golf magazines. I went into the garbage and I took out broken tees, and I got cards, like tracking cards, uh, that people had filled out and thrown out. And I used that to fill our garbage can next to the couch where we were sitting, just to lend that realism to it, right? Even though the audience would never see it. And so the camera was about the setting. It was about getting people ready. It was about getting your place ready to accept customers. And then action, of course, became really clear. That's service delivery. That's how we deliver what we do. And so once I had the framework, it was just a question of, now I have 3 sections in my book. What do I want to talk about? And I just created kind of a bullet point of an outline for each one. I want to talk about the why. I want to talk under lights. I want to talk about action. I want to talk about why we do what we do. How do we get prepared? How do we start framing our minds around what we want to accomplish? What's the end result? Right. And so the minute I started doing that, it was just a question of, now I had 3 questions I wanted to apply. And being a non-fiction book, it's a business book for business people. I started thinking about this idea. Now, you mentioned something about stories. My book is full of stories, and a
Well,
lot of
yes,
them
you
made me
have to
laugh
have them.
even
Yeah.
writing them.
But how
But I,
long was your process from your decision, which you're going to talk about in a second, from your decision to, it being on your shelf next to you?
so I would say it was 2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Okay. And how much of that was actually writing?
The writing was probably 8 months.
Okay. And how
And
much
then it
of
went
that
to
would you say
first
was
edit, then it
being
went to
baked?
first edit, and then it went through subsequent editors. And then I went through, because I published through a publisher. It's
Hmm.
self-published through a service. So I think it's considered a hybrid model of publishing.
So, so how much of your time was actually writing? Was
It
it a
was the first
daily
8 months. It
thing?
was, and I would wake up every day. I decided that 5 o'clock in the morning was when I would write. It's a quiet time for me. And so I forced myself, I was a night owl up until that point, but I decided 5 o'clock was a good time to write. So I would write from 5 till 6. Then I'd get ready, and then I'd go to the gym and I'd work out from 7 till 9.
So,
There were a
so
lot of
you
days I
had
missed
to
my
put
gym.
it into some structure. Mark, I've recently added manifestation to my channel, and something that you said is just so pivotal. And that's when you said, I decided. Once I decided. And a lot of times that's what's happening in our business. And we talked about this a little bit on your channel too. We'll link to my interview below. But we talked about how sometimes you just get to that point where you don't know, and you're in that area of confusion, especially in the middle of a pandemic. We don't there's decisions that need to be made, or are there? What do we really need to know? So the time, and I've known this for years, even before I've opened myself up to explaining to people, when you say, I decided, that right there is what made your book happen. It
Magic
took you
formula.
2 years. You had to go on and you had to do the work, but you can't manifest anything what before you decide. Things you can decide that you just want the world to tell you what to do next. but but so many people go through things, I don't know what to do next. What should I do next? There are no shoulds. There's only what what you decide.
Yeah.
And so congratulations,
Thank you.
kudos to you. I'm always thrilled to see someone who is has actually made that decision and followed through. So you had the follow through. But the
Yes,
truth is
it
that if
was
you don't have the
important.
follow
And
through, you
it
will never
wasn't
make.
that it was easy all the time. And so people would say, oh, it's easy for you because, but I can't write, or I can't think of what to write. And I had lots of days, like I originally thought, how hard could it be to write 2,500 words a day? Then I realized very good, 2,500 words is a lot of words. And so I modified my goal very quickly. And so I thought, okay, if I can write 1,000 words a day. And there were some days that I wrote 300, and I realized I got stuck because I needed to do some research and so on. But I also had a formula to writing, which was because it's a business book, there had to be learning outcomes to what I was talking about. And so then I used a formula of I would look at something and say, do I have a story about this? And then the minute,
Right. In the
like, okay, I
process
have a
that
story.
I teach people to, I've always been debatable. I've always debated people on the whole writing X number of words a day.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at my bookshelf, some of my books are a skinny 75 pages. So it's always about just getting the word out there. And
Yes.
as I've grown, then you'll see more stories. I was also very matter of fact. You pick it up, you get it out there. But when you're trying to build a business building book, like you said, those stories, those illustrations are really, really beneficial.
Yes.
But you had something else. You had your bullet points, and so when you get stuck on one bullet point, you can always move to the next to make that thing happen. And so I encourage people to work on getting this particular message done or this particular story. And also, a lot of the prep work is finding your stories first and also going out there. And this is if you're ready for your next book, which I'm thinking that we might actually coordinate on one. The biggest thing that you do though is go out and see those interviews that you've had, because the spoken word is so much easier. If you can speak, you can write. That's the title of one of my podcasts too. so um so getting that part out. But again, I'm really encouraged to see, that someone's doing that. So the final question that I had for you about your book was it worth
It was
years
worth
of
it.
your time in a project, whether you are doing it yourself or you've outsourced that to someone else to do it for you? That's sucking part of your energy or sitting on your energy, and so it's there. So was that 2 years worth it?
It was every moment of it. Once I got into the publisher and they started doing their thing, I got frustrated because it seemed like everything took time. Like when I signed on to the publisher, it was December of 2019, and it took them until September to publish. And I gave them a manuscript I thought was pretty much finished. They came up with some assessments and this and that, but at the end of it, I was frustrated by how long it took to do that. Well, the publishers dealing with more than just you. They have all these people that they're representing and all these people that they're doing. And so you have to allow that to give the time. Where I found my biggest fear, I have to say, when I was writing the book was what happens if I get this writer's block? And I thought, because that was my fear. My fear was I'm not going to come up with anything intelligible at all. And I'm sure anybody who's thinking about writing a book has this fear. And I made a commitment and I decided that I would start if I got to a section I didn't know what to write. I started every paragraph off with I don't know what to write here, but here's why I think this is important. And
Right.
that would be how I would start. And I would
Yeah.
just start kind of, talking to myself through. I don't know what to write about this. I know it's important. Why is it important? Well, it's important because. And I would
Right.
start doing that. And all of a sudden, then it's like, oh, that reminds me of a story.
Yeah, and I think like again with your next book, you might really enjoy the interview method too, because
Yes.
that's when you flow. You can flow in conversation,
Yep.
unless you're a big journaler like I am. The written, and even I journal differently than I type because most of my books have come through the keyboard, not the journal. But when you are interviewed and you can transcribe, like this right here is being transcribed by Zoom.
Mhm.
So when you can do that, then you can see, the main frame, and then you can take it out and make it cohesive, because we don't always talk as perfectly cohesive as you would if what you expect to write. So again, congratulations. What made it
Thank you.
worth it?
It was absolutely worth it. Absolutely. It brought me clarity to what I was talking about. It got me asking some really deep questions about some of my assumptions, and it got me to force myself to clarify things like facts. We all have opinions. Somebody said, everybody's opinions are like belly buttons. Everybody has one.
Okay.
and
Have
and
you used your book yet to enter the stage as a speaker rather than an actor? Have
yes,
you? Yeah.
yeah, I have a keynote. I have a keynote that I do called Lights, Camera, Action, and it's about bringing the experience that your audience deserves.
Okay. And that's something that
And
would.
so yes, I've taken aspects of the book as well, and turned them into workshops.
Yeah. Oh, so you're able to take that and make that another source of your income as well. We're not
Oh yeah.
talking about the income from actually purchasing the book. What about clients? Have you noticed a difference when it comes to someone who knows that you're an author? Not that they necessarily have read your book, but that um,
I've
that you
never had
are an
anybody go, "Oh, you're an author. Maybe we should talk." Well, okay, you did. No, I'm kidding.
author.
But what it does for me is when I'm talking with a customer, when I'm approaching a customer, we're talking about things. It gives me something to send them to, so they understand who I am, because my book is me. And the tone in which I write, I mean, I think I laughed my fool head off when I wrote it. So it's not a serious business, but I mean, all the points are really serious. But I like to think that I used my wit and even my charm to some degree in the book itself. And so anybody who's read it, who knows me, is going, "Oh my goodness, Mark, it is so you," which is great.
Oh,
However,
that's
having said that,
awesome.
is
I love
I
that's why
wanted
I
to
use video when I
make
don't.
sure that it represented who I was, and that's why it took 2 years. Like I know there's
Right.
all sorts of programs out there that says you can publish a book in 60 days.
Okay, I'm gonna burst your bubble just a little bit, Mark. Just a little bit.
Push back.
With that, I'm so glad that you're able to write it in a voice that portrayed who you were. That's why I use video when I would prefer not to, because it helps people understand how I interact and the reality of who I am. But many, many, many people who will come to you because you're an author won't even crack open your book. You are just automatically an authority because you wrote a book.
There you go.
And and it's kind of like I don't know. I'm also a lady, by the way, because I own land in Scotland, right? But it's kind of like that. You're an author. You wrote a book. You have those opportunities open for you.
Yeah.
I just want to go on. Usually we try to keep things under 30 minutes, and I'm excited about you getting your book finished, and you are about to see even more doors open for you because of that. And I just want to acknowledge something that you said that I didn't even pick up on before, and that is that you said it gave you clarity. And that really needs to be highlighted right there, because when you have clarity, then what happens? Then you can decide, right? You can't. So all of these buzzwords, we're all kind of fitting together. You have to have that clarity, and that's one of the first things that new people or struggling people that come to me have trouble with, and that's clarity. Clarity in their message, clarity in their motive, clarity. So I honestly, and I've always counseled people to write books, but I have never considered that that was a really prime benefit of it. So yay, now I have another bullet to add to my to my sales page. So thanks, Mark. But I do want to bring the value that we talked about too, that's in your book. So obviously people can read your book. But as a summary, because quite honestly, we haven't talked about that much on this channel yet, and it really needs to be said. When you're marketing and you have different reasons, whether you're posting on social media, whether you're writing a book, even or if you're at the stage, you need to know where people are on their own journey towards becoming your client. And like, as you said, eventually the ambassador. So could we just have like the synopsis? I'm going to yield to you and just kind of explain to people what we're talking about, because if you don't know where that person is that you're trying to reach, your marketing is going to be very fuzzy.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, sure. So, very quick synopsis of it is I believe that people have a journey. And for any business person, any business, they are going to get a prospect. They're the first time somebody comes across your brand. What are they feeling? What are they thinking? What are they perceiving you could do for them? That is a prospect phase. When they decide that they want to jump on board with you, they become a newbie customer. And keep in mind that this path, by the way, works for anything that's customer centric. It could be an association. So a prospect comes in and it becomes a newbie member. And the one thing that you will always have, you will have the most excited customer, you will have the most excited new member the day they send you money because they have just committed to you. And the one thing we have to realize about each of these steps is each of these steps, they're asking different questions and you have to be prepared to know what questions they're asking. So they go from prospect to newbie. I've decided I'm going to do business with you. They become engaged, becomes the next thing. And again, different questions when it's engaged. And then once they become engaged, they now become loyal and become an ambassador. The problem happens is that below all these levels is this big thing called, you could call it the pit of doom, because this is where when people fall off, they they will go into this pit of doom. And so if they're a prospect and you lose them, they will fall into that pit. If they become a newbie customer, they fall off, they go into the pit of doom. If they become an engaged customer and now they become disengaged, they go into the pit of doom. If they're an ambassador and you've let them down, they go into this pit of doom. And so at each level of the journey, they're asking all these questions. And if you're not fulfilling the expectation, the experience expectation of your customer, they go into this pit. Now, once they're in the pit, you could turn around and say, okay, well, you know what? I lost them. Oh, well, but have you? That's the premise of making sure this journey is intact, because even when they're in their pit, they haven't left yet. They have two places they go. One is they will leave you completely, they will just disappear. The other is if you do your work, you can get them re-engaged. You will never ever get them re-engaged as the newbie they once was, but you can get them re-engaged as the engaged customer, the engaged member that they once were. And you can then move them into becoming an ambassador again. But you have to understand, where are you losing your customers? If you're an association, where are you losing your members? If you're an employer, where are you losing your employees? Right? And because this journey, it's all about them asking questions and you providing the answers.
Right. Okay. So again, very true. I mean, re-engagement, engagement, and absolutely. I mean, that's why we say, somebody's really excited with you. Whether it's, how much is bubble gum now? $2 pack of bubble gum. Is that really $2 now? Whether it's a $2 pack of bubble gum or it's a $2,000 consultation, they had to make a decision to invest with you. And so once they've made that decision, most are really excited, but they're like standing on the cliff right there. They need to be reassured that, they're not going to follow, that they made the right decision, that the investment that they made is really going to be worth their while. And so you said that they've got questions, and a lot of that comes up in your marketing, whether it's your email or marketing, the fact that you're going to make a phone call to welcome somebody, a welcoming kit, or some other kind of surprise. The coupon in the back of the gum, I don't know, but they want to know, did I make that right decision? And if you're not there to answer that for them even before they voice it, that can be an issue. So you want to know more about how to make sure that you are engaging your customers the right way, depending on where they are in their customer journey. I'm going to encourage you to check out Marc's YouTube channel, check out his book on Amazon. Leave some comments, if you will, if you're seeing us on LinkedIn or elsewhere. We will do our best to get you the right questions to your, or the right answers to your questions so that you can answer the right questions for the customers that you have in your business. Is there anything else that you'd like our audience to know today, Marc?
This has been fantastic. One of the things, the negative folks out there will turn around and say, I don't have control. And this is probably one of the biggest service fallacies out there, is it's not my fault, or I'm not in control. And one of the things I ask people is, can you ensure, is there something you can do to make absolutely sure that your customer or the person you're delivering a service to has the worst experience possible? And if the answer to that is yes, which I know it is, then the opposite is also true. That you
I
can do things
love
to
that.
make
Yes, I
absolutely
have
sure
people that
your
say, I
guests are
don't know
happy.
what I want. Well, what don't you want? Let's start there. Absolutely true. Yes, that's perfect for picking out niches. Often when I have worked with people who didn't know what kind of business they wanted to start, that was the first question I had. One of the first questions I had, pardon my French here, but what pisses you off, right? Because sometimes people go into business. You also kind of alluded to that thing about the why people are in business, and they really, when you can tap into those things that evoke those kinds of emotions, then we're getting somewhere. It's not the end all, but at least that's where we're getting. Like, I know that I started helping other people market their small business because I was pissed off that Walmarts were coming in from everywhere. All these big box stores were coming in, and the laws were being generated so that people could give them these great $6.75 an hour jobs over the people who really wanted to provide for themselves in their own way. And
Mhm.
that angered me so much that I said, I want to do everything I can to help the small business owner, because I think that is what is the lifeblood of our economic system. But
And
you're not
the
here in the
fact
US.
remains that our economy is driven 90% by small businesses under 50 employees. That's
Right.
90% of the businesses out there generating our GDP.
And yet the laws favor the people who create more jobs than 50. So, it's something I'm working towards. Well, I hadn't previously decided that, that's the change that I will make in the world, but we can put that out there. In the meantime, I want to wish everyone who is a small business owner, even if you haven't decided what that business is, to go ahead and find that decision. Keep researching, watch my videos, watch Marc's videos, read Marc's book, read my books, one or two of them, and and really kind of come up with those things that evoke the emotion so that you can decide. And here's one quick trick that I'm going to share with you today too. I was going to make a separate video on this, but I remember I've worked with more than one person who was really in the depth of, we'll just call it a spade with spade. They were in the depths of depression because, and there is more that can be said to this, but when you don't know what you want, that's a really, really scary place to be. And I get that. And you're not alone, and it's not forever. So here's what you can do: simply intend that you'll find out. So you can decide that you want to decide what you want to do. It sounds out there, but it will give you so much relief. And that's what I want for you.
Nice.
Thanks so much, Marc, for joining us. And I hope lots of people hit you up. And lights, camera, action. I think too bad you're all the way up north. And I have to tell you, I have not been on stage in some time, but it is on my list of things to do recently, as soon as you can spit and not get in trouble.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Brenda. It's been awesome.
Bye bye.
Thanks.